Hey everyone, this is Zach Del Curdy, and welcome to my screencast presentation where I will be giving an overview of the Netflix movie titled The Two Popes and relating concepts and theories taught from our Nordhaus textbook, Leadership, Theory, and Practice. The movie The Two Popes dives into the selection process of a new pope after Pope John Paul II passes away in 2007. All of the cardinals of the papacy meet at a church in the Vatican in which Cardinals Joseph Ratzinger, Jorge Bergoglio, and Martini are the leading vote getters. When the vote count is tied and the Cardinals take a lunch recess, you see Ratzinger walking into tables of Cardinals trying to mooch votes from them, while Jorge is sitting at his table becoming worried about being elected the new pope. Martini tells his voters to vote Bergoglio, but Ratzinger has already swayed enough votes to his cause. After Ratzinger becomes Pope Benedict XVI, Jorge travels back to Argentina, where he continues to live his life as a bishop in a poor part of the Buenos Aires community, giving back to his community. The movie fast forward to 2012, where news of leaked confidential documents is the forefront of conflict in the Catholic Church. Jorge, coincidentally, in the midst of the Catholic turmoil, travels to the Vatican to try and convince the Pope to grant him permission to retire. When they met, Ratzinger did not grant Jorge permission to retire. Ratzinger felt more criticism would come his way because a liberal cardinal, who was already close to being elected the new pope in the last election, was resigning under his term as a conservative pope. Ratzinger scolds Jorge for his liberal viewpoints, yet Jorge has an honest answer for every criticism made his way. During this constructive conversation, Bergoglio speaks up to Ratzinger by saying he does not want to be a salesman for the product he does not believe in, referring to the Catholic Church's conservative views that have been embedded for hundreds of years. Later on, after eating their dinner separately, the Pope and Cardinal meet again to tell stories to each other. Jorge and Joseph, who do not know each other well, begin bonding by sharing their experiences with God, playing music, and watching TV. The Pope mentions to Jorge that he had trouble hearing God during his time as Pope and admits to enjoying having company around due to his lonely lifestyle. Pope Benedict XVI is called back to the Vatican, and Bergoglio joins him on a helicopter, where he brings out his retirement papers again to have the Pope sign. The Pope refuses to sign by ignoring Jorge's papers on their travel back to the Vatican. Back at the Vatican, Ratzinger and Bergoglio meet again and discuss the retirement papers, when Cardinal Bergoglio is shocked by Ratzinger's decision to resign from the papacy. The Pope explains that Jorge cannot retire if he also retires, because Jorge could be elected Pope. Bergoglio says he cannot be Pope because of his experience working for the dictatorship in Argentina and his past failures in life that make him undeserving of the papacy's highest seat. Ratzinger shows his humility to Bergoglio, telling him that he is only human and to practice what he preaches by giving himself mercy. Ratzinger believes Ratzinger gives Bergoglio his confession, yes, even a pope can sin, gives his confession of moving a priest to a different area after knowing evidence of the priest molesting boys. Bergoglio tries one last time to convince the popes not to retire and to heal the wounds of the victims instead. Bergoglio believes Ratzinger's resignation will cause more turmoil in the Catholic Church and turn away more believers. Ratzinger admits that he has not heard from God until Bergoglio had visited, and that God is telling him to leave the papacy. The movie moves forward to 2013, where news of Ratzinger's retirement is intently listened to. Bergoglio travels to the Vatican for yet another election, where he is eventually elected as Pope Francis I. As the new pope, Bergoglio travels the world to support believers and help communities, as he did in Argentina. The movie ends with Pope Francis I and Pope Benedict XVI eating pizza and watching the 2014 World Cup together, as Bergoglio had predicted the matchup between their home countries of Germany and Argentina in 2012. I noticed different leadership styles in this movie, as Pope Benedict XVI had an S1 leadership style, also known as a high directive and low supportive leadership. He wanted to keep the Catholic Church the way it had been for hundreds of years, which was perceived as conservative. He wanted the Catholic Church to run a traditional way and never flex or bend for anyone who may have been looked frowned upon by the Church. This was shown when Ratzinger was going over Bergoglio's profile with him, listing off several instances that implied Bergoglio's liberal view of the Catholic Church and Ratzinger's unwillingness to accept change. Pope Francis, on the other hand, had an S3 supporting leadership style. Bergoglio focused on immersing himself in communities so he could help them. He meets face to face with so many people who idolize him. He converses and listens to his followers and gives feedback and advice to support their cause. Bergoglio displays this leadership style when he is living in the impoverished areas of Buenos Aires, preaching to his followers and helping give meals to the poor. 6 different scenes that relate concepts from the book to the two popes' movies. Transformational leadership is a process whereby a person engages with others and creates a connection that raises the level of motivation and morality in both the leader and the follower, as defined in Nordhaus's Leadership and Theory and Practice textbook. Bergoglio creates relationships and connections with all of his people and followers, inspiring motivation and higher morale in communities suffering from equality and just poor communities in general. In the beginning of the movie, Bergoglio calls out a random kid from the crowd during a preach or sermon and asks for his name and asks to pray with him. After praying with his followers, Bergoglio is seen interacting with locals, accepting offers of drinks from them, and intently interacting with them. Another concept from the Nordhaus book would be authority compliance 9-1 behavior. The textbook defines it or explains that communicating with followers is not emphasized with this behavior, except for the purpose of giving instruction about tasks. I specifically said that Ratzinger did not have a great one-on-one people skills. He had strict ruling on how the church operated. And an example from the movie, as cardinals were gathering for the election of a new pope in the beginning of the movie, Cardinal Ratzinger is looking at pictures of other cardinals with his assistant, reviewing who each cardinal is, where they are from, and a fact about them. This displayed that he had no connection with these people because he only wants to use them to be voted into the chair of St. Peter. It may also be important to note that Ratzinger eventually had some change of heart and becomes more outgoing when he shows his face to the public while walking through a room in the Vatican Church. He takes pictures, shakes hands with tourists, and exhibiting these new traits the papacy workers were not used to. Ratzinger and Bergoglio were sitting in the courtyard of the Pope's summer home, still discussing Bergoglio's retirement papers and his profile. Ratzinger was disgusted with Bergoglio's words, saying that he had changed, not to be mistaken with compromise, with how he served his church and promoted his followers. Ratzinger was, as the Nordhaus book states, unwilling to encourage independent thought in followers and exhibits little general caring for others. Specifically, Ratzinger would not allow for religious change or adaptation in the Catholic Church and papacy, and did not agree with any of Bergoglio's religious views, such as giving communion to the divorced, his stance on homosexuals, etc. Authenticity was displayed in this movie during the helicopter ride when Bergoglio and Ratzinger are discussing Bergoglio's popularity. Ratzinger asks, is there a trick to this popularity? And Bergoglio simply just says, I just try to be myself. This is a defining moment in the movie to me because the statement sends a broad message to the Pope that implies that there is a lack of authentic leaders in the papacy. It also creates a sense of hope for what is to come in the future for the papacy. Leader-member exchange theory is also displayed in this movie. Bergoglio is constantly in talks with people, no matter where they are or where they come from. An example of this would be when Bergoglio is waiting for Ratzinger in the garden of the Pope's summer home, and he connects with the local gardener discussing how they use common ingredients present in the garden and make meatballs similarly. Making these connections creates a friendly relationship that goes a long way in motivating others because the followers will feel like they are part of the in-group and develop trust with their leaders. Another example from the movie that displays leadership member exchange theory At the end of the movie, when Pope Francis is trying to book a trip to Lampedusa, he does not have the Wi-Fi password for the Vatican, and he's trying to book his trip over the phone, which was impossible due to the phone operators thinking the Pope calling them was a joke. He exits his door out of his chambers to see a young adult guarding the door, and Pope Francis, being the outgoing, genuine guy that he is, asks the young man to help him connect to the internet so he can book his trip. This scene was funny because it was obvious the guard did not expect to interact with the Pope in such a laid back manner or environment. This is another example of leader member exchange because the Pope is interacting with a stranger, which was the guard, for the first time and is pleasant enough to create a connection with him. The guard's facial expressions showed relief and humor because the Pope was understanding of his long hours of work in the Vatican, and the Pope needed assistance for a common modern day problem for all humans, connecting to the internet. Some issues related to leadership that were in this movie. Leadership and management was the main one that I found to be an issue. Leadership and management of the Catholic Church is an issue that was most appealing. Ratzinger may be fine-tuned in management, however, he does not have many leadership qualities. Nordhaus's textbook on page 12 says, management is about seeking order and stability, leadership is about seeking adaptive and constructive change. Throughout the movie, we see Pope Benedict XVI's inability to adapt to modern changes in the world. He has a grip on managing the papacy, but has no effectiveness in leadership on his followers within the papacy and Catholic Church. After noticing these trends about Pope Benedict's management, you could feel a sense of change was coming, as Bergoglio made clear points about the ever-changing world and the papacy having yet to adapt with those changes. Bergoglio did not want to be a part of something he did not believe in, so he changed his religious views of the Catholic Church to allow for more followers to come his way and to update the morals and values of Catholicism for the modern day society. In conclusion, I really enjoyed watching this movie. It was a great example of modern day leadership and how we must adapt to change in order to be successful and to stay successful. There are many moments from the Two Popes movie that show signs of transformational leadership, pseudo-transformational leadership, authenticity, leader membership exchange, as well as examples of how to manage and how not to manage people. Thank you for listening to my presentation, and I hope you enjoyed it.